Confidence in the markets is returning as Greece appears ever closer to a bailout by its European counterparts led by Germany. Now, my next guest says a rescue is inevitable and that it has turned into a political issue. He's Ian Bremmer, the president of the Eurasia Group, joining me here in the studio. Great for you to stop by in this snowy morning.
Have a seat.
Okay, so the markets are watching, of course, very closely what the officials are doing in Europe, particularly in Germany, possibly a leader here in this rescue package. You say it's inevitable. Yeah. Why do you say that?
Well, look, it has been inevitable, I think, for a long time. The interlinkages in Europe are extraordinary. I mean, that's the whole purpose of the European experiment in the Eurozone. You have massive numbers of Greek industrials with exposure to German banks. You've got pension funds that have exposure to Spanish debt. You know, they're not going to let the Eurozone collapse. That doesn't mean that it's not a difficult coordination problem between European capitals and Brussels, and also it doesn't mean the Germans aren't happy to allow the euro to slide a little bit while people are speculating.
Right.
But ultimately, there was going to be a bailout, and we're finally moving fits and starts towards that direction.
They're too interlinked, as you say, not to help each other out. But why wasn't there some type of political arm that could have done something about this earlier? I mean, it almost seems as if now we're scrambling, or in Europe that they're scrambling to get together this cohesive package when, you know, where was the political will to put that together, or to put some type of organization together to prevent things like this?
I think the political will is to wait until crisis hits, because you don't want to see the moral hazard attached with always knowing that the Europeans are going to be there to bail you out. But within Europe, clearly, they're going to be supporting their own. They did not want these guys to have to go outside to the IMF, though that's where we would have eventually gone if the Europeans hadn't stepped in. This is going to repeat itself in Spain in the next 6 months, and we'll be speculating yet again, and there'll be a lot of volatility in the markets.
Really?
But I think there's no question.
How confident are you about that Spain is going to end up in the same situation?
Oh, I think we're quite confident that Spain's going to be in the same situation. I mean, I think the fiscal problems are enormous. And keep in mind, this is a short-term stopgap. You're talking about loans, loan guarantees. You're not talking about massive aid packages. Ultimately, you're not fixing these issues. So we are going to be resolving the crisis. The hope is that European economies turn around and eventually they build themselves out of this. But I don't know about you. I see relatively anemic growth from the entire Eurozone right now, so it's going to be a tougher road.
And that's what the markets are indicating right now, too.
I think that's right.
So Spain, where does it stop then? Greece, Spain, where else?
Oh, I mean, there are a lot of states that are relatively vulnerable right now, and keep in mind there's always the tail event of a potential European bank going under, given the massive exposures they have to some of the East European economies that are also weak. So I do think that there's still a lot of fiscal vulnerability across the Eurozone, but they are going to hang together, and together they are the world's biggest market. There's a reason the Eurozone works. I think a lot of the markets being concerned came from all of the Euroscepticism that exists just generally. That's an ideological point, and you have a lot of people wanting to bang their book and say the Eurozone's going to fall apart.
Right.
There's a reason Lisbon ended up coming together. In 10 years, we will look back and say Lisbon was more important than all of the tumult we saw within the Eurozone. Ultimately, the Eurozone actually gets stronger out of this.
Okay, now, Ian, I want to end on the final note about China, though. Where does China fit in all of this?
Well, you know, one of the reasons the Eurozone gets stronger over time is because of the growing threat from the inability to work closely with the Chinese market. There's no question that as the G2 doesn't work, there will be more incentive to create a G3, more coordination between the Americans, the Europeans, and the Japanese. We're already seeing some of that on the sidelines between the central banks of the three regions of countries.
Right.
I think that the ability of the United States and China, two most important economies now in the world, to keep that relationship from becoming overly politicized is not there. And so you're going to see a lot of fight between these.
Okay, Ian, on that note, thanks so much for joining us.